Bună seara, bun găsit la Biserica Azi, la o ediție cu totul și cu totul special, alături de un invitat special, Înaltpreasfințitul Părinte Mitropolit, Khawam, reprezentant al creștinismului melchit dintr-o zonă în care religia și civilizația creștină au rădăcini adânci, o zonă cu mari provocări, zona Orientului Mijlociu. Your Eminence, we thank you a lot.
It's an honor for me to meet you.
Please tell us something about the roots of Christianity in the Middle East. No, it's one of the oldest communities, Christian communities in the world.
Everything is begun with St. Paul when he arrived to Damascus in Syria. It was about year 38. And then the community grew up and up. So in a manner that at the end of the first century, we had a community of Christians abiding there, living there with other communities, other confessions. And Syria had, in the 3 or 4 first centuries of the history, Christian history, its representatives, its saints, its defenses of the faith, its buildings. And one of the oldest buildings, ecclesiastical oldest buildings, stay in Syria. There we have monastery until now, until today, which date so far as the 4th century Christian era, 5th century, and we have saints from all over the Syria, the party of this Christian world. We have names, Saint Ephraim, Saint Ephraim, Saint Romanus, Saint John of Damascus. Yeah? So in Syria, Christianity is very, very old, present there. And our community of the Melkites, or the Byzantine tradition, is there with their representative, their numbers, and they were during centuries. They were present and powerful in the society. They had very influential presence. In the life of the society. When arrived to the 20th century, we had a new period of immigration. It was end the 19th, beginning 10th century. A lot of people left Syria towards United States or Europe. So the presence of the Melkite in abroad turned back to the beginning 20th century. Nowadays we have the big event we had, the war in Syria. The war has divided the population and sent abroad a lot of people.
A big war, a devastating war.
The Syrian war that about 12 years continuing. We had a very
cruel and very
it was
tough.
Very cruel, very tough, very disastrous, very tragic moment. And the church is there until now with its problems.
How did you survive over the centuries?
Yeah.
In a very difficult world.
Christians there are very attached to the traditions. They are very attached to the faith, to the church, to their attachment to the land. Everything means a lot for Christians there. Buildings, monasteries, names, heroes. Big personalities are tracing the history of Syria. So in so a manner that it's not facile, it's not easy to leave completely the country. And it's not the first moment in the history of Syria when Christians supported difficulties or persecutions or other attacks from other people, and the Christians have remained always there with growing natality and.
The colonial times revived the Christian civilization in Middle East. Supported.
For every era, they had problems like fleeing the land, but every time we find people who turned back to Syria, and we are trying to now to make our effort to convince people who left Syria to come back in the land.
But it's very difficult.
It's very, it's very, I know, the difficulty is very big.
Also in Iraq, it was a very big community, Christian community,
right.
Who disappeared in the recent decades.
Right.
How do you see this big demographic problem that you are facing in Middle East now? In Lebanon, in Syria?
In Iraq, in Palestine, everywhere in Egypt. There are communities, Christian communities that by there, but the number of emigration is very big and very dangerous for the Christian presence in the Middle East. And when we have wars or crisis, economic crisis or social demographic changes in the population is always afraid, suspects the future, loses its courage to survive. But I think that the history says a lot about continuity, about permanence of Christians. And if we read the history and with the actual eyes, we can guess that Christians who left the Middle East creates a problem for the Middle East. I mean, quitting the land. No, it's a new problem for the Middle East when this part of the origin population is no more there, and other. I mean, the politicians, the responsible, the sociologues have a lot of work to do thinking about this new situation in the Middle East.
Bashar al-Assad and the Syrian regime created a civil war, in the last 10 years that were strongly condemned here in Europe. Of course, that churches are not doing politics there. But please tell us something about the many issues that you are facing. For example, the growth in the recent years of Islamic fascism, of radical Islamism, and of Islamic State, terror attacks, and many other issues. How do you see this problem?
ISIS is new as concept. It's new for the Middle East. ISIS is a creation that dates only from hardly 20 years, not
100 years?
20
years.
Yeah,
30
it's a
years.
new creation. It's a new concept. The society in Syria or other in Lebanon or in Iraq
was very tolerant.
It's very open
and liberal.
Liberal, and they lived together for centuries. They cooperated for centuries. They have very good relationships among the communities. There wasn't a so big problem as it is represented nowadays. New ideas, ideological ideas, has been inserted in the society and then spread out in a strange method. We have never learned in Syria or in Lebanon such a way to live or to think or to change relations between inhabitants with a suspicious way or fear or, it's not our...
It was trust between communities.
Something is strange, yeah. It was transported from other places.
How do you see this multicultural society in the Middle East? You have many, many religions.
Yeah.
Orthodox Christians, Islamic, Jews, exactly, Druze, and Catholics.
Yeah.
How do you see all this picture?
It's a cultural context for the Middle East. For me, it's a richness. It's it's a good sign. This means that people, that human can think, can embrace faith as he sees. Now everyone sees the reality as he with his proper eyes, and this is a very good thing. The bad thing is to refute, to expel others because he thinks with such a manner that is different. But Orient was always a lieu of receiving...
A place of receiving...
populations, cultures, very different faiths. It was a rich way to live together.
Do you believe in a democratically Syria?
The democracy in Syria is a proper way to,
the Western style democracy.
Yeah, the Western is a thing for the Western.
Yes.
And for the Greek, democracy was another thing.
Exactly. Yes.
Okay. For the West, democracy has another meaning. For the Orient, another one. So the word has not only one meaning. It depends on cultural ambience, and it depends on social, demographic, socio, politic, culture.
Yes.
It's a kind of different elements that make a sense for a democracy in a country.
And you believe that the Christian community of Syria, the Christian community of Lebanon, could create a way of social and economical development of these countries?
That's a question, very important question. Lebanon, Syria, Jordan, or other countries from the Middle East, they all face economic problems.
And always faced. They always faced.
Yeah, and these problems are allied to political elements. So politic, economic, not so much social. Communities can live together when other problems are regulated. So for the Middle East, we are to think about other factors which are influent on the situations experienced in Middle East.
Like
Russia, United States, or other
Turkey.
Big authorities, Turkey. Or Iran, other puissance,
other big major powers.
Yeah, they are elements of the context of tribulations or...
Like a religious leader from Middle East, how do you see Europe today?
For me, has lost a lot of originalities. Europe has a new identity that hadn't ever before. So Europe has to resolve problems, new problems, and Europe knows a huge quantity of problems. Social, economic, moral, ethics. They have more and more problems to resolve and to face.
How do you see the secularization from our societies, from our European societies, in the recent decades?
Okay, secularity is, when it began, secularity was good. It meant, and it,
Political, secular politics is one, but we are speaking here about secularization of societies.
Okay. Do you know the concept of secularization has a definite meaning? That means society can, with its own capacity to make history, to make society, to make relationships, to make notions. Or if this is the meaning of secularization, I mean, how can the European society regard the family, the values, the kind of interpersonal relationships,
The role of community?
the role of community, how the European regard to the
Because secularization hit hard Europe.
yeah.
In Western countries, for example, now Christians became a minority.
Yes.
In Netherlands, in France, in Belgium, they are representing a minority today.
That's right. It's because of the secularization, and because a lot of people have been influenced.
Left the church. Left the churches. Many people left the churches.
I know that. It's a new problem that will last for a decade of years, for some decades. And then the population has to resolve this problem, because secularization has created problems for the society, and they are to face these problems, as my point of view. Okay, what does it mean a person or a society is secularized in the sense that I reject values or moral values or the biological themes? Is it good or not?
There are new questions.
That's the problem. Yeah.
How do you see the role of religious diplomacy today and the relations between the European churches and the Christians from the Middle East and your churches? Relations with Holy See, with our Orthodox churches, and with the European Protestant churches from north?
It's a huge problems. These questions, these issues are very, very big, and we hardly can approach these kind of issues. It's so intrinsicated and complicated. It's not so easy to have an answer explaining all the context of these problems. The church in West depend and works with the society, with the political authorities, and it has duties towards the society. The church in Middle East has other problems to,
yes,
and they are to respect some values, some relationships, some kind of pertaining to the land. So when you put together these two big societies, church in West, church in Middle East, when you put them together, problems are big and big, go more big and big. We hardly can have one unique view or point of view to define this issue.
The Christians lost the power in the societies from the Middle East in the last decade, the demographic power, because they are less and less. I see in Lebanon, maybe some decades ago, there were 60% Christians, 50 years ago or 70 years ago, and now I think that they are around 40% or maybe less, maybe less than 40%. How do you see this demographic fall?
People have tried to find problems to the economic situation, and they fled
To Europe,
abroad,
to United States.
to live there. If the situation was better, or the political, the economic, or the other fields of life, if they were better, I mean, I think no one would have thought to go abroad.
How do you deal with these problems of the Syrian diaspora in Europe?
Yeah.
You, like church, you are near these persons from diaspora?
Yeah. So a lot of priests have been sent here in Europe to follow and to be near the new immigrants who fled in Europe or in the United States too, or other countries. No?
Tell us something, please, about the Christian cultural monuments and churches in Syria.
In Syria?
Yes, because there are many.
Yeah.
And it's impressive. It is impressive.
Yeah.
This cultural
Everywhere
picture.
you go in Syria, you will find monuments, historical historical monuments, and new découvertes, new findings are ever on the land. Yeah. 2 weeks ago, we have not in Syria but in other countries, they have found in a monastery. In Syria, we have Damascus. We have another. The south of Syria is full of monuments. Everywhere you go, in a small village or other big localities, you will find monuments of churches, of monasteries. If you go north,
many of them are demolished during the war.
Some parts are demolished. Yeah. If you go north or you go east, the Euphrates, the river, Euphrates,
one of the biggest.
Everywhere on the two coasts of the river, of the big river, you will find monuments of Christianity. So all the land, the whole land is is full of vestiges.
Do you see an outcome, a fine of this war in the next years?
Yeah. It's for the Christianity, it's a very big problem.
Yes.
And for the future.
It's a very big problem.
Yeah.
Because, for example, Lebanon faced a civil war, very tough.
Yeah.
And also we are seeing today
Yeah.
the consequences of this war.
Yeah.
Social ghettoization and many artificial problems between the cultural communities. How do you see the relations between Christian churches from Syria?
They are very good.
Very good.
Yeah. We have not conflicts to live together. Every community has its own tradition, and we meet with each other in different occasions. Catholics and Orthodox are living in the same region.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
How do you see this part of Mediterranean civilization? Because when we are speaking about Syria, we are speaking about the same world of Mare Nostrum, like Italy, like Greece, like Egypt. There were many connections between these cultures in the Mediterranean world. How do you see this world today?
It has continued as it began. I mean, the Syrians, for example, the Armenians, the Latin from the Middle East,
yes.
Latin are there
yes.
from the 12th.
The Pontic, the Greeks,
the Greeks
who lived this area.
They were always there, and they continued to live there, and they are married with each other, and they have commercial relationships. They live in the same world, in the same family. You can find Orthodox and Catholics married together, and people can go in the Orthodox Church without problems, and vice versa. It's not so acute, so difficult as we think.
It's very important because this world is beautiful.
Yeah.
Secularization created also some opportunities, if I can say this, because it's a huge potential for missionary activities. How do you see the missionary activity today?
It's very restricted, and it has so to do. The church has a pastoral work to do, and it's very, very large and diversified to do.
Is it an activity in the Middle East of the church in this field?
Yeah, we are to work with young people, with old people, with people who left the church, with people who would like to know much more about faith, with people who frequently come to church. So the missionary, the pastoral life of the church in Middle East is very active, very vital.
It's full of life.
It's full of life, yeah.
It's a church full of life.
Yeah.
And very young.
And very young.
This is very important.
Yeah.
Tell us something about your activity in the very dangerous regions of Syria. I'm speaking about northern part of the country. Also, it's very difficult for Romanians to understand what's happening there, because now we have many factors who are influencing the situation there. We have Rojava, maybe, this is the name. We have the Syrian opposition who controls a small part of the country. We have the Kurd part of the country, and the northern part of the country, which is under Turkmen brigades or Turkish occupation. Is very difficult for us to understand this very complicated situation. Yeah. And also we have some parts occupied now. There were in the past, in the last years, occupied by Islamic State. Yeah. How was it your activity in these areas?
The church activities in the region where it cannot be present because of presence of ISIS,
of Islamic State.
They are not there. They can't do anything. It's a reality. It's a fact of reality.
There were priests killed, no?
Yeah.
And many crimes, many crimes.
And Muslim sheikh too.
And Muslim sheikh?
Yeah, they were killed by ISIS.
Because they were radicals and
fundamentalists and moderate Islamic.
They demolished some UNESCO very big monuments.
I'll tell you something. We have a saying in our culture that says this: if you ask to someone, do you know Mr. X? And he will reply, yes, I know him. And the question is again, have you ever lived with him, with this person who you know?
Very interesting.
Yeah.
It's an example of tolerance.
The reply is not, I didn't live with him. And the other one will ask you, so you don't know him. It is not... It's not a good way to hear about countries, about politics, about culture, only from books, only from mass media, only from...
It's very important to go there.
To go there, to live there, and to experience the kind of life, kind of relationships between communities, social or religious communities, and then to write something about.
Yes.
Okay? So the question is, how much the Christianity or church activities is influent, effective in Middle East? My answer is big.
It's huge.
Huge. Even though the crisis, the political, that this is not so quiet, يعني.
But the influence of the church
They are there. Yeah.
is very,
Yeah.
is very.
If the patriarch says a small phrase, immediately mass media, politics, they will comment.
Yes, and also this crimes made by ISIS and this growth of ISIS is very related, like every radical movement is very radical, is very related to stupid people, to stupid people, exactly to.
Because some
yes.
people have embraced this kind of
Yes.
ideology, and it's not it's not original. It's not from.
And it's not typical for this for this part of the world who lived in peace.
Yeah.
Please tell us something about the fate of the Christians in Iran. In Iran, where they are facing many problems.
Yeah.
It was also one of the oldest Christian communities.
Yeah.
And now they are facing many problems there. And most of them came to Syria in the last decades.
Right.
And in Lebanon.
Right.
It's a migration.
You know, during the church history, the first centuries, the Byzantine
Empire, yes.
was in Syria. It was too in Greece. Christians have suffered under a lot.
A lot.
Under the Byzantine and Muslim power have invested all the Orient. And
also Spain.
They were in Spain.
Yes, they were in Spain.
And
yes.
you know, the most
for 1,000 years.
a big number of killed persons were Muslims under
Yes.
the Caliphate. You know?
Yes.
Though it's not a question of kind of regime or government. No, it's another. I mean, it's another field to go there and to search why, to ask why. If actually, in the actuality of the present days, Iran has problems between communities, religious communities, and but Shiites also in Iran suffer
A lot from this dictatorship.
Okay? So it's a question. It's a very comment here, restricted problem to
Yes.
to study there on the land and to try to find the good answer, which is convenable and correspondent to the situation.
Christianity is one of the most persecuted religion in the world. The most.
Yeah.
How do you see this today?
From my point of view, because Christianity is no liberal. Christianity has values.
Yes.
Has doctrines. It's not liberal. Liberal means I will do what's good for me.
Yes.
That is liberal. Christianity says no. You can't do what you.
You can do what is good for your brothers.
Yeah. So liberalism and Christianity are in a manner in two different.
In opposition.
In opposition. Society today tends to be more liberal. They want to do what is good, what people sees as good for them, and this is a very restricted field of viewing things. Why? How many Europeans stay in the streets?
Many.
Droga, problem with
Drug
family,
addiction, yes.
Separation of family. There are a lot of problems, and on the moral field, you know the questions today in Europe: marriage between men and men, women and women. Okay, it's a new liberalism, which will cancel every kind of values from the society. And the society today see with the new vision says, good. We have to respect the thinking of the other people and say, legalize this kind of.
You think that Christians will become in the future the new dissent of the so-called liberal society?
You know, if we read what the Pope writes and says, what other commission says about new moral things in Europe, the Church is trying to go more and more near to people of today.
Yes, and this is very important.
Yeah.
To touch the hearts.
Okay. New documents are written under this kind of vision. The recent convocation to a synod by the Pope Francis, he is trying to say to the Church, go ahead, do what's new for the society, but not forget our fundamental ideas, biblical themes. It's a kind of living with a definite doctrinal faith, moral values of the society based on the teaching of Jesus Christ.
Do you think that we'll have in Europe a new Vatican?
Council.
Yes, a new Vatican Council. And do you think that the last Vatican Council was a failure?
No, it's not a failure. It was good for decades. Studies have been made on the Council. And we have in an era, we live in an era where we have new views, new considerations for the presence of Church in midst the society. If ever the necessity is there to make a new council, I think the Pope will not be the late one to go ahead.
The Church passed many eras, the Industrial Revolution, wars, and many eras. How do you see, from the point of view of the Church, of the new digital revolution that we are living now? A new era is burning now. This digital revolution, who is changing our lives and our societies. The Church will adapt itself to these new ways?
Yeah, I think, yeah. The Church adopts the new, everything is in, everything that would be good for the development of humanity, of the society, of the well-being of the man. The Church is there and it encourages this. But the only limit or the only anxiety Church has is how to use the new methods to enslave the men or people, yes, or not.
And our spirits.
Yeah. Enslave or not enslave, or liberate, or how to flourish the society, how to liberate the man, how
Christianity is a religion of freedom, addicted to freedom.
Yeah. With this, I pointed to the good for man, for a human being.
For human being.
Yeah.
You are visiting our country? Do you like Romania?
I didn't see a lot of things. I saw something. I have the impression that Romania has made huge steps the last 10 or more, 20 years.
And also we saw Christian revival after the communist past.
I didn't learn a lot of Christianity in Romania, but I had a meeting this morning with His Holiness, and I heard a lot of things encouraging the presence of the Church in Romania.
This is very important.
Yeah.
Also. Please tell us something about Syria and about the future of Middle East. You think that in the next decades we'll see the Christianity surviving there?
I am not a prophet, but I know that the difficulties are very huge.
Very.
Yeah. If we learn about Christian presence in Palestine or in Iraq or in Syria or
Also in
elsewhere,
Egypt. In Egypt.
in Egypt also. If we make statistics of Christian presence in the 1950, for example, and some decades later, 1970, and then 2000, and we can have a representation in so a manner that is going down. The presence, I mean, Christian presence is going down. If I go back to the history, I know that, for example, in the North Africa, Christians were there. Tunisia, Algeria, Morocco. They were there in big numbers.
And then
now,
disappeared.
And they had disappeared. So we have to read this kind of history statistics. If you go to Europe and you make the same statistic with the Muslim presence,
Yes.
okay, you have to find something reading this kind of story.
Which is larger and larger. And after Christianity was a European religion for centuries.
Okay.
Now Christianity is becoming more universal.
Yeah.
We are seeing now Christian revival in Africa, in China. This is very important.
Yeah.
This is very, very important. You have the secularization or forms of secularization in Middle East.
Yeah. They are open.
Different
It's
from
different
Europe.
yeah. It's
Different from Europe?
Yeah. There is a small part of liberal thinkers, men who think, philosophers.
Yes.
Liberal. They are pursuing non-religious interference with the society problems.
Not with politics, with society.
Yeah, church stay there stay inside the monasteries, the convent, and treat with your problems, and be leave the people. That is the kind of liberalism, European liberalism. We have a group who think in this manner.
Something very important. Have you got a political theory of Christianity in Middle East? For example, in Europe, we had Christian democracy who created the Western Europe after the Second World War, strongly related to Roman Catholic Church and also to Protestant churches. So here in Europe, we had a political theory of the Christianity. In Middle East?
No, nothing about this.
Nothing about this. A political experience. It's something only in the society.
We
Very
import these ideas.
You are importing these ideas now?
But they are not ours.
So the forms of government were very separated from the religion, from the Christian religion, because an Islamic political theory exists.
Yeah.
And we are seeing that it is very active. We are stopping our dialogue here. What do you wish to Christians over the world in 2022?
You know, my opinion is this. Before I go to say something about others, I have to say something about me.
Yes.
So auto-criticization is very essential for the church. We are to read again, more deeply, what our duty, what our mission is. We are to know what the Bible says. We are to live what we read. We are to pray because we are men of prayers. We are to be, so an auto-reading, an auto-criticization is very important.
Your Eminence, I thank you a lot for being near us today. Sunt Cristian Gava, Până săptămâna viitoare, rămâneți alături de Trinitas TV. O seară frumoasă, la revedere! Thank you a lot!
Thank you.